Just over a week ago, Netflix released its series, The Punisher, and that means I am in the mood to talk about Frank Castle, who is The Punisher. And as we do this, it's going to be a little bit different from some of my ranking videos in that we're not really comparing movie to movie, we're comparing people that have appeared in all sorts of different formats. So a couple of these guys have just appeared in movies. Jon Bernthal has just appeared in TV shows, and then you got Thomas Jane, who was in a movie, a short fan film, and then a video game. And so it's a little bit different take on how I'm going to do all this, but still we're going to talk about who is the definitive Punisher based off their current body of work and the amount of appearances they've had, the quality, how iconic they are, all of that fun stuff. Now, before I give my take, put your take down below in the comments section. Which renditions do you like? Give me some feedback, not just on which one do you think is the best actor or the best movie, but kind of give the full perspective on your take on all of it. That's what I'm going to do. It's not just rating the movie. It's not just rating the actor. It's the full picture. Give me your thoughts down below in the comment section. Now, before I dive into all this, I'm going to look at Rotten Tomatoes. Here's what they did. This is a bad comparison since you're reviewing a TV show, a movie from the 80s that wasn't really theatrically released, and then two kind of wide released movies. But just so you know kind of how the different things fall on this one, in last place is going to be Punisher Warzone with 27%. Here's the crazy part. Right above it is The Punisher from 1989 with 28%, and right above that is The Punisher with Thomas Jane from 2004 with 29%. They're 27, 28, 29. It's pretty crazy the way that worked out. And then up in first place is going to be Marvel's The Punisher, the TV series with 61%. Comparing TV reviews to movie reviews doesn't translate all that well, though. So to give you just some sort of perspective on it. I also put up a Twitter poll. I try to put these up whenever I do these kind of longer form ranking videos. Get your perspective on it. In last place was Dolph Lundgren. I'm assuming also the one that has been watched by the fewest of my Twitter followers. In second place, tied were Thomas Jane and Ray Stevenson. But in first place, with a dominant lead, was Jon Bernthal with 20 of the 25 votes. In first place, 80% of the vote on that one. So that's you guys' take on it. With that said, I'm going to dive into this and start talking about these. And like I said, I'm reviewing the quality, how iconic they are, how memorable they are, their different appearances, how faithful. I'm trying to factor all of it in. With that said, coming in at number 4 is going to be Dolph Lundgren's The Punisher. Now, this one actually was filmed in 1989, kind of sat on the shelves for a while, didn't get a normal release. And as you watch it, it's kind of interesting because it's feels very much so like a 1980s action movie, even with Dolph Lundgren, who was a big 80s and early 90s action star. They got kind of one of those 80s directors to direct it. The Punisher himself is kind of just an action hero, as an action vigilante, as a comic book. And that's what the movie feels like, a very generic action movie from the 80s. And I rewatched it a couple weeks ago in preparation for this, and I went in wanting to like it. I went in wanting to be like, yeah, fun 80s action movie. And at the end of the day, it's just a little bit too generic. There's not a lot there to make you go, wow, that was really cool. Wow, that was impressive. It's just kind of there. The portrayal of the Punisher, to the point of the character himself, is fairly one note. So Dolph Lundgren can pull off this character very well in that he's a big, imposing guy. You color his hair black and he looks the part. He can hold a machine gun, blow guys away very well. He can handle the action because he was a martial artist himself. So he handles a lot of that really well. But they don't try it like with the, as we'll talk about in one of the later ones, with the Jon Bernthal version where they try and give a lot of layers and depth to it. They don't do any of that here. This is a Punisher that shows up and mows guys down, that's merciless. And so in that, that's pretty faithful. The backstory on it, there's a couple things changed up in there. But I mean, he's been on as a vigilante, blowing guys away for a while. I think the biggest problem that just kind of made it off-putting to me is the action is not shot well at all. It's a lot of stuff where he's standing there with a machine gun doing this, a guy runs up behind him, and then it cuts to a close-up of a foot hitting the guy in the face, the guy falling down. It's not like well choreographed, wide angle. It's just a lot of cutting to remove the stunt work from the stunt work. And that's, to me, that's really off-putting. That's just poorly shot action. When I think I can shoot better action than this, that is so lazy. I don't like it. And so when you've got a movie that's just action, 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 it doesn't work well when you're doing your action in that manner. And so this one, to me, it's kind of forgotten, so it's not really iconic at all. Dolph Lundgren's not a bad casting choice. He could have been a great casting choice, but because the movie is kind of forgotten by time, fairly generic as a movie in general, I just got to put this one in last place. There's just nothing about it that pops, that makes me go, yeah, that was really cool. There's nothing, if I were to say best adaptation, most interesting action, most colorful, there's nothing I can give this one to boost it up. So unfortunately, Dolph Lundgren, I'm sorry, you're coming in fourth place. Coming in third place for me is going to be Ray Stevenson, who did Punisher Warzone. Now, this one is one that is interesting because the original production of this one was going to be a sequel to Thomas Jane's movie, and then years passed and delays, things happened, script rewrites, and then suddenly it became its own standalone movie. And when I first saw the trailers for it, I was so excited because it was it was red band trailers when they first put them out. And it was so violent. You get what you didn't get too much of in the Thomas Jane version of the Punisher, just mowing down the mob and taking guys out with extreme ultra violence. And so if you're going to do a not direct sequel, but in an idea of follow-up to his movie, this is that next step. And then you watch the movie and it for whatever reason, it doesn't work. So once again, I rewatched this one 2 weeks ago in preparation for doing this video. And Ray Stevenson, once again, like Dolph Lundgren, he's a huge guy, like 6'4", so looks the part of this intense guy in his own way because he doesn't have traditional movie star good looks. Not that he's not handsome, but he looks like more like a manly man. He fits this role of this guy that's just mowing guys down great. I love the comic booky use of color in it that the director chose to use here. Love all of that side of things. And just like I said before, the action sequences when they get going, which is, there's a lot of them, just so violent, and he's just blowing faces off of people and just cartoonish violence in the right type of way. So many things that make me want to say that I love this movie. The problem is that the actual end result, it doesn't feel right. Something's off in the way it's handled, and it's largely the tone of the movie, in that you have such cartoonish and comic booky looking action sequences, and then one of the main storylines in it is that Frank Castle killed an undercover cop. His widow is hurt by that, so Frank is realizing the consequences of his war against the mob, and so he's trying to make amends with her and set her up for success, and she's mad at him, but then Jigsaw's out for revenge against her and tries to hurt. Like, this is the main plot of the story of the movie, and it tonally doesn't seem to match quite right with what came around it. And then the way Jigsaw is played, it's so campy, so cartoonish, that it really feels out of place with this very somber plot line about Frank killing a good guy. And the portrayal from the Julie Benz, who's just playing it very straight. She's not playing it campy at all. And so things right next to each other that don't quite fit. So the end result is a movie that you'll have a scene like, oh, this is actually really good. This plot line about Frank killing someone, that's a good plot line. The way they shoot the action, that works pretty nicely. I don't think the Jigsaw stuff really works at all in any sense of the matter. But the end result, when you put all of them together, it never clicks. And I rewatched it wanting to love it, wanting to be like, yeah, ultra violence. And it doesn't quite work. Now, to its credit, if you're trying to just kind of give out awards for matching what feels like the comic book, Punisher Warzone's action probably gets the award for most accurate depiction of Frank Castle in comic booky action. If you just want Frank Castle action. This is the winner right here for that particular award. But the movie in general, not so much. Ray's performance, fairly one note like Dolph's. He fits what the movie's trying to do. It's not like, I'm not saying that as a negative. The movie writes him as this very one note, merciless guy that's just blowing guys away. But even in the way some of that's, there's like this scene in it where there's a guy arrested and a police officer's like calling in for backup. Frank is holding a child that he's like worried about this child because he just killed the child's dad few days before or whatever. And he walks in and blows this guy's head off in front of the kid. And like no concern, like this could traumatize a kid, which I guess matches his comic book personality. I guess it fits. But when you have that followed by a scene where he's worried about this family, it just doesn't come together right. And so unfortunately, I'm trying so hard to like it more than I actually do, but that's where this one has got to fall for me. Now, before I go into my top two, there's going to be a pretty big jump in the gap right here, but real quick, I want to do a big shout out to my supporters over on Patreon. So if you don't know what Patreon is, it's the way that people can directly financially support my channel and help me create the content that I'm creating, help improve things, take things to the next level. And if you like my channel, if you want me to keep doing what I'm doing and want some extra input into what's happening, some exclusive content, as I'm shooting this video, I'm uploading an exclusive review that one of them requested that I review. Please consider heading on over to my Patreon page and supporting me over there. Because of them, I've been able to kind of improve my channel in certain ways. I built this set because of them. I got actual studio lights so that I can, look right and not look bright red. All sorts of things like that. And that's because of their support. If you like my channel, want to help me continue doing what I'm doing, please consider supporting me over there. Now, before I jump up to my top two, I'll tell you right now, there's a pretty big jump in my mind between the bottom two and the top two. Coming in at number 2 for me is going to be Jon Bernthal, our current Punisher. Now, some people I would assume or think I'm going to put him on top. I'll tell you right up from the get-go, when it jumps to just pure quality of the production and the storytelling and depth of characters and character development and doing a interpretation of the character that's just quality. I just call it quality. I'd say easily I would give the Jon Bernthal version the top awards. The work that they did with the Punisher in Daredevil season 2, just some of the dialogue in there, the way they handled him, phenomenal. Like they took a character that, as I mentioned before, was very one note in the past and very easily can be written very one note. And they took it up to this whole different new level with the character. So on the quality level of just some of the stuff they've been able to produce, top level. The new series, I think it dragged a little bit in the middle, maybe a little bit too much like the show Homeland, but very, very high quality. So the reason, if I'm trying to contrast which one comes first, which one comes second, for me, thus far, Jon Bernthal's rendition is a interpretation that's fairly different from the comic books in that we haven't seen him yet just on his mission to punish criminals. We've seen kind of his origin story, or actually I think we've only really seen an origin story thus far in the way they've portrayed him, in that he's been taking down the people responsible for his family's death up to this point in time. So he's on a mission of revenge. He has not fully gone Punisher yet, just punishing criminals. And with that, I feel like we're limited in how much I can be like, he's the best Punisher, because he's not fully the Punisher to me yet. Season 2 could happen, or I'm sure season 2 will happen. When season 2 happens, he very easily, very quickly can move up to that number 1 spot. If they give us, he's taken on the Nucci's, he's taken on crime families. They do the quality they've been doing thus far with him punishing criminals beginning to end. He takes the top spot. So anyway, let's kind of dive into it. As I said, the way they've handled the character is to just handle him so realistically and give us an actual psychology that help us, I would see, how would this guy do what he's doing? Why would he do this? And so many great scenes. Like, I've rewatched some of these scenes with the dialogue of him in the diner with Karen Page so many different times. I've rewatched the scene where the military guy's on the trial and is a witness for him and kind of giving his backstory of him in the military so many times because they're so well written and give like such a picture of who he is in such a respectful handling to such a B-movie type character. From there, you move on to the action in, oh man, like the prison fight scene, such brutal action that they've given him thus far in some of these scenes where he's just taking guys out, or the battle, I think the second to last episode, third to last episode in the Punisher series where he's in his own hideout and the guys come in. Amazing action sequences, brutal action sequences, so many amazing things. This guy, I was going back and forth as to who was going to be my number one. When I think Punisher in my mind, who do I think? I don't think Jon Bernthal yet. I'm very close. Jon Bernthal, Punisher Season 2. If it's as good as we've gotten thus far and we continue this story, you're going to move into number one. But as of right now, my number one pick for the best Punisher that we've gotten thus far is going to go to Thomas Jane. Now, to be fair, it's a little bit, he's got a little bit of an advantage here in that he has one movie. He has a fan film called Dirty Laundry that he was in, and then he was also in this video game right here that luckily for him, I've played this extensively. I've played through it like 5 different times, and so because of this video game that gives us quite the Punisher story, torture, and all sorts of other stuff that you want from the Punisher, he's got some extra credit in my situation. You might not have played the video game, you might not have seen Dirty Laundry, so if you're just comparing the Punisher TV series to his movie, you probably go Jon Bernthal, and so would I. I've got some other things I'm factoring into it. So let's kind of walk through his movie. And it's a little bit of it's very much an origin story where he's out for revenge against the people that took out his family. And I've rewatched this movie so many different times. And it's a movie that I think is often misunderstood in that the director, John Hensleigh, was going for very much a 70s vibe. He wasn't trying to do a modern action movie. With the budget he had, with the story he's trying to tell, he's doing like Sam Peckinpah and stuff like that. And so kind of a Western set in modern times and a lot of stare downs and stuff like that. And taking guys without, by outthinking them and things like that. And you see that in the movie and you can understand better kind of what he's going for. Now, like I said, if you're just going pure quality, Jon Bernthal wins out over it. But still a very cool movie if this is your type of thing and you like 70s exploitation films. Here you're seeing it in Punisher fashion. You get John Travolta in here, kind of a bit of a campy role, but in the way it's kind of performed in a very John Travolta type way. But you love to hate his family and his wife and his kids. They make you actually want him to kill all these people and the henchman guy in there as well. Just the way they build him up as monsters as you watch them mow down his family. And so you're just like rooting for the Punisher to like cause him to kill his wife and all this stuff on so many levels. It's like vicious in the way it's handled. There's a director's cut of it that adds in some extra layers into it about how one of the guys in here we used to be his partner in the military and he's the guy that sold him out. And so there's even more kind of frank punishing people in brutal fashion in the director's cut of it that add the extra layers and depth to some of this stuff. But there's some real iconic stuff in here. The fight with the Russian, amazing sequence. It's actually straight out of the Welcome Back Frank comic book, graphic novel, like images straight from it, the way it plays out. Very cool sequence, and that whole set of roommates and stuff in there. That's where that comes from. It all comes from this one comic book. And people just forget how good the supporting cast in this movie is. Like, you've got a young Ben Foster in it. He's like a world-class talent just playing his neighbor. Rebecca Romijn Stamos is nice to see in there. You got Will Patton, one of those kind of character actors that appeared in a ton of stuff for about 10 years there. All kind of filling out the story and making for like a vivid cast of characters that they could easily be forgotten if not for the talent that was cast in this movie all around. That kind of elevates it much higher than a lot of the credit that it's kind of given. But my score for this one, or rating for putting Thomas Jane up on top, isn't just because I really like this movie. It's not just that. He's also had a couple more things that factor into it. So, I don't know, 5 years ago, this movie called Dirty Laundry came out. It's 10, 11, 12 minutes long. You can check it out on YouTube. I'll remember to put down in the description a link to it. And it's got Ron Perlman in it. It's just this little one-shot story of Frank Castle, and you get to see him in action, taking out bad guys in a very Frank Castle kind of way. But like I said, the reason for me that this one actually kind of takes in the number one spot, the thing that pushed him over the edge would be the video game. It's a very violent video game. It's a third-person shooter where you get all kinds of guns. There's actually one of the most infamous elements of the game is there's like torture is a huge part of the game where you get information for people and you can choose to kill them or set them free or use them as human shields. All very Punisher type stuff, and it's voiced by Thomas Jane, so you get to go on this adventure. It's loosely, it follows the Welcome Back Frank comic book pretty well, actually, and that's kind of tells that story in video game fashion, and you get some various characters kind of show up from the comic book lore in it throughout the movie, or throughout the game. And so, all in all, it's just a very fun game. I literally played through about 5 different times. It's dated now because the game's 12 years old, 13 years old, or whatever. And so if you play it now, it could feel very clunky compared to what you can get now. But back in the day, it was actually one of the better movie to video game translations. And it was like, it's not based on the movie, it's more based on the comic book, but Thomas Jane is in it. That's why it gets my number one spot. I love this movie. It's got a special place in my heart for all of its flaws. Then we got a great fan film and then a video game that kind of pushed him into that number one spot. He's the most iconic in my mind. He gets to go full Punisher because of the video game. I have played as Thomas Jane mowing down hundreds, maybe thousands of bad guys. So he's my number one pick. Anyway, how about you guys? Tell me down below in the comment section your ranking of the different Punishers, factoring in the quality, how iconic they are, whatever you want to factor in. I don't care whatever your criteria is, just let me know. Let's have a lively discussion. If you're new to my channel, please consider clicking that subscribe button. I do movie reviews, TV reviews, ranking videos. But the key thing is I don't want to just talk about movies and TV. I want to talk about movies and TV with you. So join me in the comment section. Let's have a lively discussion. And thank you so much for watching.